Hey there people, so today I am bringing you my Terraria Mimic guide, the complete guide to everything about the Mimic enemies in Terraria for all platforms, including the different types, how to identify them, how to farm them using the statue and the keys of light and night. I will also fight them and talk about all of their drops, the items that they leave when you kill them. I will also be including timestamps in the description of the video so that you can skip to the relevant parts if need be. So let's talk about Mimics. Mimics only spawn naturally in hard mode. Hard mode, of course, is after you defeat the Wall of Flesh boss. There is a statue, which is the only way you can spawn them in pre-hard mode, but spawning them via the statue, they will not drop any loot if you spawn them by the statue. So let's get that out of the way. You cannot use the statue to farm them because they will not drop their items other than the banner if you spawn them this way. But let's spawn one. That is what a mimic looks like. Normally they will start just sitting in place, and they will look like a chest, and they'll kind of attack you when you get close enough. So yeah, or if you happen to hit them, then they'll come at you, and you can see they jump around and they try to kill you. That's a mimic. And there are 4 regular types that are available on all platforms that will show up on all platforms. There's the wooden one, which you just saw there, the one that looks like a wooden chest. You'll find those at the surface layer. There's a golden one that looks like a golden chest that you'll find when you're underground. There's a shadow version that looks like a shadow chest that you'll find when you're down in the underworld. Shadow chests like these ones. And there's also a ice mimic that you will find only in the snow biome that looks like an ice chest. So the wooden chest version, golden chest version, and shadow chest version of the mimics all drop the same items. The ice mimic, however, in the ice biome has special drops. There is also a present mimic on all platforms that spawns during the Frost Moon event, but the present mimic will only drop a present and some hearts, so I'm not really going to talk about that one. There are also, on the updated platforms only, there are 3 other harder special biome mimics that spawn in the Hallowed, in the Corruption, and in the Crimson. Those are on the updated platforms only, the biome mimics. So there is a Hallowed mimic, there's a Corrupt mimic, and a Crimson mimic. They're bigger, they have slightly higher damage, or they do slightly higher damage and have slightly higher defense, but particularly they have several times more life, which makes them a lot harder to kill. They also have stronger attacks. Some of their attacks can travel through solid blocks, including if you try to run away, they will chase you and can actually dash through blocks. So one more thing about those, I will show you those a little bit later, but in expert mode, those special biome mimics can also reflect projectiles when they're closed, just sitting there looking like a chest. So you do not want to shoot them with like a sniper rifle if you're playing an expert, because it will reflect that projectile back at you, and you can actually die potentially in one shot from a powerful enough weapon. Certainly reflected projectiles will hurt you. And all of those mimics, all of them, all different versions on all platforms, they are immune to fire, poison, the Cursed Inferno debuff, the Shadow Flame Venom, and Confused debuffs as well. So let's talk about identifying mimics. Well, as you saw, they look like chests, obviously. The regular wooden, golden, and shadow chest versions and the ice chest version, they all resemble chests that you will find in the world. On the other hand, the present mimic, the Hallowed, Corrupt, and Crimson mimics do not look like any of the chests that you will find in the game. So those ones obviously are going to be a little bit easier to spot because they do not, like even the biome ones, they don't look like the biome chests that you find in the dungeon. They're just like, they're bigger than normal chests, so that's a pretty clear sign. And of course the present mimic, there's nothing else that looks like it in the game. So those are easy ones to find, but the ones that look like wooden chest, golden chest, shadow chest, and ice chest, those can be a little tougher to identify. You'll be wandering along, you'll see what you think is a chest, and all of a sudden it tries to kill you. And of course, early in hard mode, they are actually reasonably tough. I did, put on some gear that is kind of like the beginning of hard mode here, so just so I can be fair about it. But there are some ways you can tell. So first of all, there's the life form analyzer. And you can see here, mine says, it's the rare creatures indicator here, no rare creatures nearby. It will tell you, it will say mimic when there's a mimic nearby. So life form analyzer, any of the things derived from it, the GPS, PDA, cell phone, they will all tell you that there is a mimic nearby. Also, one thing, other than the wooden one, because wooden chests do not shine, but the other ones that look like chests, those types of chests do shine. So you can see wooden chests don't shine. But if you watch these shadow chests, there's a little shine effect. And mimics, on the other hand, do not shine. So they look duller compared to the regular actual chest. So that's another way you can identify them. That does not help you with the wooden ones because wooden chests don't shine. But that's, a fairly easy way. Also, if you use a Spelunker potion, it will not highlight them as chests. Spelunker potions will highlight treasure and loot. They will not highlight, they will normally highlight actual chests, but they will not highlight mimics. Conversely, the Hunter potion does not normally highlight chests, but it will highlight mimics as an enemy. They'll glow in red if you're using a Hunter potion. So that's also a couple other ways that you can identify them. The other thing is, of course, again, they normally just sit still, and basically just by hitting them, if you're not sure, fire something at it, see if it moves. And if you do hit it and it is a mimic, it will come and try to kill you. So that's, of course, a way to tell as well. And the funny thing is, on the current mobile version, which does not yet have the update, I think this will change when the update comes to mobile. But for now, until that update comes to mobile in February, in the month of February, all enemies have hearts floating over them because of the Valentine's event that currently is still on mobile. So that's a pretty easy way to tell. Of course, I'm recording this just before February, so it's good timing for all of you on mobile. Enemies will have hearts. Chests will not. So an enemy that looks like a chest will still have hearts floating above it, and that's a good way if you're playing on mobile. So let's talk about farming. So the basic thing about farming is just having an open space and a long flat area. The thing about enemies in general, actually, but particularly mimics, they will spawn on a surface, and it has to be wide enough for them. Of course, if they're just the size of a chest, it's just 2 blocks. I think the bigger ones, it might be 3 or so. I didn't look it up, but it just needs to be a big enough surface for them to spawn on. So actually, one of the easiest ways to farm for mimics early in hard mode, because again, they only spawn in hard mode, is if you happen to use the big long bridge method of fighting the wall of flesh, which I did, you can actually just run along your bridge and keep running until you find a mimic. And that's actually one way you can do it. Now you can improve on that, because that could take a very long time. A way of improving on that is to use a battle potion. If you want to, you could even carry a water candle, although you'd have to be prepared to switch quickly, because those will increase spawn rates. Of course, that can also get dangerous, but basically you can just keep running along, running back and forth until you find one. They will spawn in the underworld. They will look like shadow chests in the underworld. So that's one way that you can actually go farming for them very easily. Again, if you happen to build a big long bridge anyway, because that big long bridge, it's a nice big long surface, and there's not a lot of other places they can spawn in the underworld. There are the little buildings, there's the little overhangs and stuff. Those are places enemies can spawn as well. But a big long bridge is, one of the few surfaces in the underworld. So that's an easy method. And the only other thing is that will only work for the regular mimics. It will not work for the Biome mimics that are on the updated platforms only, because they do not spawn in the underworld. Only the regular types, and specifically the ones that look like shadow chests, will spawn in the underworld. But there's a much easier way for those Biome mimics anyway, which I'll show you a little bit later. First, let's talk about a more serious farm setup. So I did set up a farm down here, and again, basic principle is that you want to actually have as few surfaces as possible, but you want one big long surface. And I am actually, just so I can explain this to you. I'm going to use a calming potion to reduce enemy spawns for now, just so I can talk. So you can see here, actually, I have basically made a big, long thing. You can see it in the mini map here. Big, long surface. And that's your basic thing. You basically want to carve something out, have a big, long, solid surface, and you actually want to fill in any caves that are underneath you and eliminate any extra surfaces, unnecessary surfaces that you can't easily access above you. You actually need, ideally, a space of 84 blocks in each direction horizontally and 47 blocks up and down that you basically will just have, you know, only the surfaces where you want them to spawn. You don't have to have just one surface, but just where you actually want them to spawn. Now, that's your basic thing. The next thing is, if you have that set up, the thing is that mimics, by default, they spawn and they don't move, right? So the next step is to get them to move. And for that, you need to hit them, right? You can just sit there and fire randomly in each direction with something that shoots far enough. That's perfectly valid. But the next step is just to put some dart traps on either side. That's easy. Wire them up to a timer. And those traps will shoot every so often. And any mimics that happen to spawn, because enemies generally spawn just off the edge of the screen. So if they spawn, those darts will actually fire and hit them and trigger them to come and try to attack you. So that's step 2 of your farming setup. But step 3 is to build a proper, you know, a trap. Volcano trap, something like that. So you can go basic. You can just have a big flat open area. You can take that next step of just having those dart traps. But if you really want to do it well, and if you want to, particularly if you want it to be like a sort of AFK farm, it probably won't be quite AFK because there are worms that can come through. But very close to AFK is this sort of setup, and this is called a volcano trap. So again, ideal setup, 84 blocks, flat surface in either direction, solid, you know, 47 blocks down, or just empty space, actually. You can just have a platform and nothing but empty space far enough down, as long as it's far enough that they won't be spawning below it. And same thing upwards, you can either do solid or empty space up there as well. But basically, you want this to be the surface where they will spawn. You want your dart traps to be firing at them every so often, so that when they spawn sitting still like a chest would, they'll be hit and triggered to come and get you. And then you want a structure like this. This lava trap is 9 blocks wide. It's a single bucket of lava in a 9-block wide thing. And this, you just need a few blocks up, and then you narrow it a little bit to 7 blocks so that they can't easily jump out. It has to be about this tall. This is kind of a minimum. You can make it bigger if you want to. But this is about the minimum that I could find in terms of height. That they would not jump out. So that's pretty important too. And then I just used a hammer to angle the sides to make it look nice there as well. You do not need to use this type of brick. Again though, if you want to really get this going, you're going to want, instead of a calming potion, you're going to want a water candle. I just brought 2 because it looks cool. You only need 1. And battle potion. Those will also help your enemy spawn rate. And we'll start seeing more enemies here. And that will increase the odds that they will spawn. They are pretty rare, so you won't see them very often. But basically, you sit here long enough, you use those to increase the number of enemies, and enough enemies, eventually some mimics will spawn. The darts will hit them, they'll come up here, and they'll fall in the trap, and the lava will burn them, and you'll get their stuff. So that's basically how all of that works. Now, in terms of a battle potion, if you want to craft one, it's bottled water plus deathweed plus a rotten chunk or vertebrae at a place bottle or alchemy table. That's how you craft a battle potion. And in terms of where you set up this farm, it should be in the cavern layer. You can see if you have a depth meter, it will tell you if you're in the caverns or just the underground. You have to go down far enough where the background changes. And in fact, I'm just barely in the cavern layer right now. You can kind of see here, the dirt ends about here, and the cavern is just below that. So the dirt is like the brown background, cavern is more of a gray, stony background. There are different variations on it, but basically where that background changes from dirt to stone, that's when you're in the caverns. And it's a little bit more likely, supposedly, that they will spawn in the cavern layer. That's sort of unofficial. But yeah, you need a big enough area. You probably, if you're just going for regular mimics, you'll want to do this in an untainted area like this. It's called the Purity, not the Hallowed, not the Corruption, not the Crimson, just a regular area like this. I think you have a slightly better chance, maybe, I'm not quite sure of that, of getting mimics in there. However, if you do want biome-specific mimics, you can either do it in that biome, or you can put up to 100 blocks. It actually depends which biome you're going for, but I think it's the Hallowed needs 100 blocks. One of them needs 100 blocks of that particular biome blocks to turn it into that biome, so you might want to do that. You'll want to, if you want to keep this pure, if you want to, change it back and forth, you can use a contaminator, or you can just place the blocks. But you'll want to seal them off if you don't want them contaminating the neighboring blocks. So you can use clay or wood, 3 blocks wide barrier to stop it from infecting or infesting. Now, one more way that you can actually increase the spawn rate a little bit further is to use lizard bricks from the jungle temple. You'll need at least 80 of them. One easy way to do that is just to build the actual volcano structure out of lizard bricks, which is not, again, what I did here actually. But to increase the spawn rate some more, you can do that. You will actually start getting certain jungle enemies if you do that. Particularly the jungle bats and some fish and stuff. I noticed. I actually tried it out. I built this in jungle bricks first, jungle temple bricks, the lizard bricks, and these are Martian bricks just because I thought it might look kind of cool. I'm not even sure that it does, but you can actually use whatever bricks you want to build the structure. It doesn't really matter. The jungle bricks, though, the jungle temple bricks, lizard bricks, will increase the spawn rates further, so that might be helpful. Yeah, another alternative to all this setup is you could also use like spider armor near the beginning of hard mode, and use the spider minions, use a summoning setup, and they'll kill, enemies that come near as well. So you could just kind of run back and forth with enough summon enemies, or summoner summons minions, and they'll take care of the enemies for you that way instead of just sitting here too. Or you can just run back and forth and fight. But this is kind of, if you're willing to do a little bit of building, obviously this is a pretty easy thing. You just sit here and wait for stuff to drop. So, yeah, and you don't have to wire this up. I wired this whole structure to actuators just because I thought it looked cool to make my sort of little volcano trap thing suddenly appear. Obviously, other than this little thing with the lava in it, the rest of it is actuated, but that was just for fun, basically. Because you don't want your lava dropping out. But you really just need a way to get in here and a way to get out. Of course, you can teleport out as well. I did end up putting a lever inside and a lever outside and wiring all of that. But in terms of wiring its actuators and all that, I can show you that quickly. My equipment is in my safe. And there you go. It's all wired. It's all actuated. You don't need that much. You can just wire up a little passageway. And you can see it goes over to that lever, passes through this lever, and then the dart traps are wired separately. You'll actually want a slower timer rather than a fast timer for that. This is a 5-second timer because you don't want your dart traps actually killing your enemies. You just want them to make sure that those mimics are not staying stuck in one spot for too long. So that just fires every 5 seconds and frees up those mimics. Yeah, let's get those bats that are all stuck in the walls because I actuated that. We'll get them out of there. And yeah, you don't want your enemies being stuck anywhere. You want them to keep moving into your trap. That's important as well. The more enemies that die, the more chances you have of a mimic spawning next. So let's talk about those update-only biome mimics now. We can get out of here, actually. So you can hear me better as well. Those update-only biome mimics, there's an easier way to farm for them. A much, much easier way. All you need is souls of light or souls of night, depending which ones you want to spawn. And you can make these keys. There's a key of light made from 15 souls of light, and there's a key of night made from 15 souls of night. And all you need to do with those actually is to put them in an empty chest and then close it. And at that point, it will turn into a mimic. So that's actually a really easy way of spawning those particular mimics. You just need 15 souls. So souls of light to get your hallowed mimic, souls of night, depending on your world, to get either your corruption or crimson mimic. You cannot get a crimson mimic this way in a corruption world. You cannot get a corruption mimic in a crimson world. So how it works is just this. Place down your chest, put your key in it. It has to be completely empty other than the key. And then you're going to want to close it. And an easy way to do that, because you're going to want to fight it, is just to jump. Now, I didn't use glorified bullets because, you know, I want to demonstrate that this is something you would do in early hard mode probably. These mimics, the biome mimics specifically, are just really, they have the best items. They will get you some really sweet stuff early on in hard mode. Obviously they are difficult. One easy way to take care of them is to have, you want a platform high enough that they can't jump that high. So actually, if anything, perhaps slightly higher than this, or to be ready to jump out of its way. You want a platform pretty high up because they can jump pretty high. And if you have a high enough platform, you spawn them on the ground, you can basically just shoot them from above. And that's an easy way to take care of them. So that's how you fight those as well. And yeah, same thing for the other type of mimic. Again, place down a chest, put the other type of key in, and as soon as that closes, it becomes a mimic as well. So yeah, I would recommend, you know, obviously an open enough area and maybe some wings. You know, I like to be a ranger class, so this is a way of, you know, doing that. This is just normal mode, so they will be a little bit harder in expert. They'll have higher health and all that, do more damage and all that as well. Basically, they get double the health, a little bit higher defense, a little stronger attacks if you're in expert mode. But yeah, it's a nice easy way of getting those, and those are the particularly valuable mimics in terms of some weapons and stuff that you'll need. So let's talk about their drops at this point. I went ahead and I put all their drops in a chest here. So the regular mimics will drop a dual hook, or a magic dagger, a titan glove, a philosopher's stone, a cross necklace, or a star cloak. So it's a 1 in 7 chance that they will drop any one item. They will only ever drop one. Also, if you're on old gen consoles, the additional item they can drop is a compass. Whereas instead, if you're on mobile, they can actually drop a light disc. On all platforms, they will drop these first 6. Only on old gen consoles they will drop the compass. Only on mobile they will also drop the light disc, and they will drop any one. That's the regular mimics will drop those. Now the ice mimics, interestingly, I was using this all along. The ice mimics will drop the Frostbrand or the ice bow or the flower of frost. It's a 2 in 7 chance that they will drop any of those 3 items. There's also a 1 in 20 chance they will drop the toy sled, which summons the little cute little snowman pet there. That's what you got, a 1 in 20 chance of getting that one instead. But I'm going to bring back my gatto here. So my cat. Yeah, it's a 2 in 7 of the other ones though. Frostbrand's pretty good as a beam. These are all pretty decent stuff. So basically, it's melee weapon, Frostbrand, Ice Bow is ranged, of course, Flower of Frost is magic, and this is kind of a theme that, well, it's not with the regular mimics, it's with the other ones actually. If you look at the Hallowed mimic, again, the update only ones will actually, the update only Biome mimics will always drop 10 greater healing potions and 10 greater mana potions every time, and they will also drop one of the other things. So Hallowed mimics have a 1 in 4 chance of dropping either the famous Daedalus Stormbow, so that one alone is worth making some Key of Light and literally having some chests and just going through a few of those to get your Daedalus Stormbow. It's a pretty easy way of doing it, right? The fight is maybe not that easy at the beginning of hard mode, but to get your Daedalus Stormbow, that's worthwhile. And alternatively, that's a ranged weapon. They can also drop the Flying Knife melee weapon. That's actually a really sweet weapon as well. So Daedalus Stormbow rains arrows from above, which is what makes it so useful. You can use that in all kinds of situations. Flying Knife. I've shown these weapons in other guides before, but I think it's worth showing again. Flying Knife is an awesome melee weapon. Crystal Vial Shard. It's a lot like the Vile Thorn, but upgraded for hard mode. And they can also drop the Illuminant hooks. So basically, there's one of each of ranged, melee, and magic weapons, and then there's a hook. And you'll find that's the same with the Corruption and Crimson mimics. The Corruption mimic will drop a dart rifle, or it's a 1 in 5 chance. Dart rifle is ranged, of course. Chain Guillotines for the melee weapon, which is, yeah, these can be useful. It hits pretty fast if you're close up. Or the Clinger Staff for the magic weapon. And also, this one can drop an accessory, and it's the same with the Crimson one. The Hallowed Mimic does not drop an accessory other than the hook, but this drops the Putrid Scent, which makes enemies less likely to target you, and also increases your damage and critical strike chance. And then they can also drop a hook, the Worm Hook. So Crimson Mimic, similar idea. In place of the Dart Rifle, it will drop the Dart Pistol. Instead of the Chain Guillotines, it has the Fetid Baghnakhs, so that's actually an incredibly powerful weapon, melee weapon. So if you are in a Crimson world, definitely go through some Crimson Mimics to get that. Life Drain, the magic weapon, which more or less does what it says. And the accessory is the Flesh Knuckles, which actually is sort of the reverse of this in some ways. Makes enemies more likely to target you and actually increases your defense. So Putrid Scent in Corruption worlds makes them less likely to target you, increases your damage and critical strike chance. Flesh Knuckle in Crimson worlds increases your defense instead of your attacks and makes them more likely to target you. So that would be more useful for a melee player probably. And also a hook, of course. Each of them has a chance to drop a hook, so that's the Tendon hook in this case. And I think that's all for now. So I hope you liked the video. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.